What happens when your cafe's best server is too broke to buy herself lunch, but still buys a meal for someone else? That question hit Adrian Foster hard as he tossed his phone onto the passenger seat, staring at the small-town cafe he hadn't visited in over 2 years. It was the 4th location of the 7 he now owned. He had bought the entire chain 6 years ago from a retiring couple who had run it for decades. Back then, he was just 32, hungry to prove himself. Now, at 38, he was successful, but distant. The cafe chain, known for its warm vibe and comfort food, had grown fast. Too fast. Adrian had trusted district managers to keep things running, but lately, he'd been getting complaints. Nothing huge, just whispers. Turnover was up. Customer reviews were slipping. Staff seemed overworked. One review stuck in his head. The food was great, but the staff looked exhausted. Nobody smiled. He decided to go undercover. No cameras. No PR team. Just him, a baseball cap, fake glasses, a trimmed beard, and a new name, Eli. He'd pose as a trainee cleaner sent by corporate to help out during a staffing shortage. It wasn't hard to pull off. None of the cafe workers had ever met him in person. The chain had exploded in popularity, and most of the newer staff just knew the owner was some guy in the city. He'd already visited 2 other locations earlier that week. They were decent. The 3rd, however, had a manager who openly mocked a dishwasher for being slow. Adrian sent a message to HR that night. The guy was gone the next morning. Today, he was focused on the 4th Café, Maple Street, a high-traffic spot near a busy middle school and hospital. He stepped inside just before the lunch rush. Bright sun poured through the windows. The place had a cozy charm, but something felt off. "Hey, are you the new guy from corporate?" a woman in her late 20s asked. She was tying her apron, eyes darting toward the kitchen.
"Yeah, Ellie.
"I was told to help with cleanup and tables." She gave a quick nod.
I'm Kendra Tate.
"Server. We're down 2 people today, so you'll be busy." "Manager's in the back." "Thanks," Adrian said, getting his bearings. The manager, a tall man named Rick, barely looked up from his phone when Adrian introduced himself in the back. "Just don't get in the way. If you see crumbs, wipe them. If someone pukes, mop it. Don't talk to customers. You're not trained." And that was it. Adrian spent the next hour wiping tables, clearing trays, and keeping his ears open. The place was hectic. Kendra was juggling 6 tables, moving fast, always polite, but he caught the way her face would fall every time she turned her back. He also noticed Rick disappearing into the back every 15 minutes. At one point, Adrian walked in to grab more napkins and saw Rick watching a game on his phone with his feet up. Adrian didn't say anything. Not yet. A little after noon, the door opened, and a boy maybe 7 years old walked in alone. He slid into a booth near the window, clutching a school backpack. His face was red, his eyes puffy. Kendra noticed him right away. She walked over, kneeling beside the table. "Hey, sweetie," she said softly. "You okay?" The boy didn't answer at first. Then he whispered, "I missed the bus. My mom works at the hospital. She's not answering." Kendra gave a small nod. "You hungry?" He nodded again, wiping his face with his sleeve. Adrian watched as Kendra stood up, walked behind the counter, and pulled out her own wallet. She didn't check with the manager.
She didn't hesitate.
She paid cash, then slid into the back kitchen and prepped a grilled cheese with fries herself, since the line cook was backed up. When she brought the plate out, she set it in front of the boy with a smile. "It's on the house, okay? You're safe here." Adrian stood frozen with a wet rag in his hand. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. He leaned over to another worker by the soda fountain. "Does she do stuff like that often?" he asked. The girl, maybe 19, shrugged. "Kendra? All the time. Last week she gave her jacket to a homeless lady outside. She'll probably skip her lunch now." Adrian looked back at Kendra. She was checking on her tables again, like nothing happened. He felt something tighten in his chest. When was the last time he had cared that much? The door to the kitchen swung open again. Rick walked out, yawning. What's that kid doing here? We running a daycare now, he muttered. Kendra didn't answer. She just kept working. Adrian clenched his jaw. He had seen enough for now. But he wasn't done. Not yet. By mid-afternoon, the lunch rush had mostly thinned, but the tension in the air hadn't. Adrian kept his head down, rinsing out a mop bucket in the back hallway that led to the stockroom. He hadn't said a word to Rick since the comment about the boy. He didn't trust himself to. Kendra had finally stepped away for a 10-minute break, not because someone told her to. No one ever did, but because her hands had started shaking when she tried to pour coffee, and a customer noticed. Adrian watched her sit on an overturned milk crate near the back exit, sipping a lukewarm coffee she'd poured nearly an hour ago. She didn't look angry, just depleted. She kept her apron on, one foot tapping rhythmically as if her body refused to believe she wasn't on the floor. He walked past her toward the back storage room, careful not to stare too long. He needed to see what kind of inventory control they had. The dry goods shelf was half-stocked uneven. The logbook on the clipboard hanging by the door hadn't been filled out in over a week. Don't even bother, someone said from behind a stack of flour bags. Adrian turned. A young man, probably early 20s, was crouched near the bottom shelf, sorting cans. Inventory's always off. Rick signs the order sheets, but half the time doesn't even check what we're low on. Last week we ran out of dish soap for 2 days. Adrian nodded. You work in the back? Line cook. I'm James. You the corporate guy who's helping?
Yeah, Ellie.
He offered a hand. James shook it briefly, then wiped his palms on his pants. You'll see what goes on. Don't need me to tell you. Just watch what Rick does when we get slammed again. Adrian didn't answer. He walked back toward the kitchen, mind already turning. He wasn't just watching anymore, he was documenting. Every skipped order, every ignored safety protocol, every time someone like Kendra took on too much because no one else would step up. Back on the floor, a new face had arrived, a man in his late 50s, wearing a maintenance shirt with the Café's logo. He was fixing the broken soda tap behind the counter. Rick stood nearby, arms crossed, tossing a plastic stir stick between his fingers. You've been here over an hour, Rick said. You're charging us by the minute now? The maintenance man didn't look up. Takes time to pull the line and repressurize. It's not like changing a light bulb. Rick scoffed. Maybe if you were faster, we wouldn't keep getting complaints about flat soda. The man continued working. Adrian stepped closer, catching a glance from one of the younger workers, a barista named Lila. She rolled her eyes subtly and returned to wiping down the espresso machine. Rick's phone buzzed. He pulled it from his pocket, checked the screen, and grunted. I'll be out for a bit. Don't burn the place down. As soon as he walked out the back door, James peeked from the kitchen. You think he's gone for the day? Lila laughed quietly. He'll be back in an hour, pretending he had some meeting. Adrian checked his watch. 3:30. Kendra was back on the floor, moving slower now, her hair tied up in a quick twist with a pen. A couple had just left her section, and she was bussing their table herself. There were no bus staff scheduled today. No dishwasher either. James had been juggling both jobs between orders. Adrian grabbed a rag and joined her. You don't have to help, she said without looking up. I don't mind. She finally looked over, really seeing him. You're not like the others they've sent from corporate before. He raised his eyebrows. Others? Sometimes they send people to observe when complaints pile up. They show up for a day, ask a few questions, then disappear. Nothing changes. Same broken schedule, same short shifts, same coverage issues. Adrian paused. Why do you stay? She shrugged, then set the tray down on the counter. I've got a sister finishing college. I help with her rent. I pick up shifts where I can. This place used to be different. Before Rick took over, we had a manager named Carla. She worked the floor with us, knew everyone's name, even helped cover shifts if someone's kid got sick. What happened to her? She asked for a raise for the kitchen staff. Said we were doing the work of 2 people half the time. Next thing we knew, she was reassigned. No one's heard from her since. Adrian felt his jaw tighten again. Carla had been one of the original managers when he bought the chain. He remembered her handwriting on the onboarding documents. She'd been steady, reliable. He had approved her transfer to a different region after Rick submitted a report claiming she was resistant to new operational procedures. He never thought to question it. A sharp crash echoed from the back. Adrian and Kendra turned. James appeared from the kitchen, cradling his hand. Dropped a tray.
Sorry.
Burned myself earlier, kinda threw off my grip. Kendra moved fast, grabbing the first aid kit from under the counter. Adrian stepped aside as she unwrapped a bandage. Why didn't you say anything about the burn? She asked. James looked at the floor. Didn't want to slow things down. Adrian watched the exchange. Watched how Kendra applied ointment like she'd done it a dozen times. Watched how James didn't flinch, even though his knuckles were clearly raw. Rick returned 15 minutes later with a coffee from a high-end cafe down the street. Everything still standing? He asked no one in particular. James burned his hand, Kendra said without looking up. Rick took a long sip from his cup. Should have been more careful.
That was it.
Adrian stepped away, heart pounding. He found a quiet spot near the hallway where the office was. He pulled out his phone and sent a message to the regional director. Rick needs to be pulled.
Today.
I'll explain later. He didn't wait for a reply. He walked back toward the front, where Kendra was folding napkins at a side station. Hey, he said quietly. Can you take a minute? She looked confused but nodded. He led her to the back hallway, just far enough from the main floor.
I'm not Eli, he said.
She blinked. What? My name's Adrian Foster. I own this place. She stared at him. Her mouth opened, then closed again. You're serious? He nodded. I came here undercover because I've been hearing things.
Some quiet, some loud.
Today confirmed a lot. She took a step back, arms crossed. So, you watched all this happen instead of stopping it? I had to see it for myself. And I had to be sure. I didn't want to interfere until I knew exactly what was wrong. Then we're drowning.
Ido.
She looked away, jaw tight. People here work themselves into the ground. And Rick just watches. Not anymore, Adrian said. He's done. I already started the process.
She didn't look relieved. Not yet.
That's not going to fix the schedule gaps. Or the inventory issues. Or the fact that we haven't had a working walk-in cooler light in 3 weeks. I'm not expecting you to believe a speech. I'm going to show you. Her eyes finally met his again. Actions matter more than words here. I'm staying through close. Then I'll be back tomorrow. No disguise. She nodded once slowly.
Good, she said.
Because this place used to feel like family. Now it feels like survival. That hit harder than anything else he'd heard all day. He nodded and headed for the office. It was time to finish what he started. By the time the last customer left and the lights were dimmed to closing mode, the air in the cafe was thick with fatigue. Chairs were flipped onto tables, the soft hiss of cleaning spray punctuated the silence, and the only music was the low hum of the walk-in cooler's compressor. Adrian stood near the back counter, sleeves rolled up, scraping dried cheese off a tray that had been forgotten during the rush. Kendra was at the register, counting the cash drawer with precise, automatic movements. Rick had already left, despite being told to stay until closing. The regional director didn't even hesitate when Adrian called her earlier once she reviewed the complaint trail under Rick's management. She authorized immediate termination. His access codes were already being revoked. He wouldn't be stepping foot in the building again. James emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a bar towel that had clearly been used for far too many purposes today. Do we still need the back bin scrubbed? He asked, voice low, eyes darting to the clock. Adrian walked over and glanced at the list on the wall. Not tonight. We'll reset the prep schedule tomorrow. You've done more than enough. James gave a silent nod, then turned to grab his backpack from the dry storage shelf. You have a ride? Adrian asked. He hesitated. I usually walk. It's only about 40 minutes. Adrian didn't press. He just made a mental note. Across the cafe, Lila was restocking syrup bottles with slow, deliberate movements, her hair tied back with a rubber band that looked like it had snapped and been knotted back together. You live nearby? Adrian asked as he walked past. 15 minutes if I cut through the park, she said, not looking up.
Why?
Because I'm not letting you or anyone else walk home alone this late anymore. We'll figure something out. She blinked, then tightened the cap on a bottle of caramel syrup. Okay. Kendra approached him with the final register report and held it out with both hands. It balances. Keep it, Adrian said. There's something I need to do first. She tilted her head slightly. What's that? I'm going to tell everyone who I am. He stepped into the center of the cafe and raised his voice just enough to carry over the hum of the cooler and clatter of the mop bucket. Can I get everyone up front for a minute? They gathered slowly, tired and guarded. No one spoke. No one sat down. Adrian met their eyes one at a time. My name's Adrian Foster. I'm the owner of this cafe and the others across the state. James blinked once. Lila's eyebrows lifted slightly. Kendra didn't move. I came here pretending to be a cleaner because I stopped trusting the filtered reports I was getting. I wanted to see this place for what it really is. And I did. He let the words settle for a moment before continuing. You've been carrying a place that's been failing you. And I'm not talking about profits. I'm talking about leadership, accountability,
Safety.
respect. No one interrupted. The silence was heavy, but it wasn't hostile. It was the kind that waits to see if someone's finally going to say something real. I saw people here working through burns, skipping meals, buying food for strangers with their own money, and covering shifts without anyone thanking them. I also saw a manager who disappeared on you, ignored safety, and treated you like you didn't matter. He didn't just ignore us, Lila said, arms crossed. He made it worse. Adrian nodded slowly. He won't be back. James rubbed the back of his neck. Is this a one-time speech, or are you actually staying involved? Adrian stepped forward. Tomorrow morning, I'm bringing in a temporary operations lead to stabilize the schedule. We'll start hiring immediately for more support staff, and I've already approved overtime pay retroactively for the last 3 pay periods. You're getting what you earned. He turned to Kendra. You're getting promoted to floor lead. Effective immediately. Additional pay and hiring input. She stared at him. I didn't ask for that. You didn't have to, he said. You already stepped into the role. It's time your title caught up. Kendra glanced at the others, then back at him. I want to see the hiring process. I want to say in who we bring in. You'll get it. James stepped forward. If we're rebuilding, we need to fix the kitchen schedule. One cook can't run the whole backline. Adrian turned to him. You're right. Consider this your last week doing solo prep. I'll have another cook from the North Side location come in until we hire more. You'll also lead the kitchen training for any new hires, with a bump in pay. James didn't smile, but he nodded, a little slower this time. Adrian looked at Lila next. Anything you need to do your job better? More than one working frother would be a start, she said. And someone who actually rotates the milk cartons instead of shoving them in wherever.
Done.
Equipment replacement orders go out tomorrow. And the milk issue ends now. Kendra crossed her arms. If you want to actually fix this place, you need to be here. Not just today. Not just next week. You need to walk through that door without a disguise and talk to us like people. He nodded once. Agreed. I'll be here 3 days a week for the next month.
No clipboard.
No corporate badge.
Just me.
You tell me what's not working, and we fix it together. James raised an eyebrow. What about the rest of the locations? I've already started rotating through them, one at a time. This isn't just about Maple Street, but I'll be back here more than anywhere else. Kendra looked at the floor for a second, then back at him. If we're building something better, it can't just be about keeping the lights on. We need people who give a damn. I know, Adrian said. And I need you to help me find them. No one clapped. No one cheered. But the shift in the room was unmistakable. The tension didn't vanish, but it changed shape. It became something else. Expectation. Possibility. Kendra cleared her throat. We still have to finish closing duties. I've got the trash, Adrian said. James grabbed a mop. I'll take the back hallway. Lila went to the counter. I'll finish the syrups. No one had to say anything else. By the time the last light flicked off and the door locked behind them, the air outside felt colder, sharper. The streetlights buzzed faintly overhead as they stood on the sidewalk. Adrian pointed to his car. I'll drive anyone who doesn't want to walk. James waved him off. I'll catch a ride with my cousin. He lives 2 blocks over. Lila nodded. I'm good. Kendra hesitated. You sure you know what you're getting into? Adrian looked at her. Not completely, but I know I'm not walking away. She studied him for a moment, then gave a single nod. Not approval, not forgiveness. Something more useful. An opening. By the following week, Adrian had returned to the Maple Street Café 3 times, never in disguise, never unannounced. He didn't show up with a clipboard or take meetings in the office. Instead, he brought coffee for the morning crew, worked the line with James during peak hours, and took notes only when something needed fixing that moment. The first real change came on a Tuesday morning. 2 new hires stood near the counter, waiting for their orientation to start. Ava, a college student studying food science, and Deshawn, a former prep cook from a bakery that had recently shut down. Kendra stood in front of them, a printed checklist in one hand, a fresh apron in the other. She didn't read off a script. Instead, she spoke plainly, explaining how things really worked, who to ask when they needed help, and what mattered most: respect, consistency, and not leaving your station without telling someone. Adrian stood off to the side, watching. Not guiding, just listening. After the new hires were paired up with Lila and James for shadowing, he followed Kendra into the back office. You're building a system, he said, crossing his arms. I'm building a team, she replied, without looking up from the scheduling sheet. System comes next. She tapped her pen on Friday's column. We'll still be tight on coverage during the afternoon rush. Ava's only available until 2 on weekdays. I'll pull someone from the north side location again, Adrian said. Temporary fix, but it'll hold. She stopped tapping, finally looking at him. You're not planning to run every shop short-handed just to patch this one, are you?
No.
But I'd rather shuffle coverage than keep running people into the ground here. She nodded once, then circled a name on the sheet before pinning it to the board. In the kitchen, James was teaching Deshawn how to manage fry orders without overloading the basket. Deshawn asked questions. James answered, without condescension. The rhythm felt right. Out front, Lila showed Ava how to refill the espresso grinder. Ava was quiet but focused, following every step without hesitation. Later that afternoon, Adrian stepped outside to take a call from the regional facilities manager. The walk-in cooler's compressor, long overdue for replacement, would be swapped out that Saturday. He approved the invoice without haggling. Some things didn't need discussion anymore. When he returned inside, a customer at the front counter was raising his voice. I'm telling you, I ordered this with no onions. This is ridiculous. Do you people even listen? Ava stood frozen, holding a plate of chili cheese fries. Lila stepped in quickly. Sir, I'll get that remade right away. I'm sorry for the mistake. But the man wasn't interested in a solution. He leaned forward, voice louder now. I've been coming here for years and never had to deal with this kind of service. You hire kids who can barely speak straight and expect them to get orders right. Adrian stepped forward before anyone else could respond.
Sir.
That's enough. The man turned. Oh, what? Are you the manager? I'm the owner. And what you just said, that's not about food. That's about respect. And we don't serve people who talk to staff like that. The customer blinked, as if he hadn't expected to be challenged. You can leave now, Adrian said, calm but firm. The man opened his mouth, closed it again, then grabbed his keys from the counter and walked out without another word. Ava still hadn't moved. Lila placed a hand on her shoulder. You're good. That wasn't about you. Adrian walked over. You did nothing wrong. He didn't want fries. He wanted to feel bigger than someone. Ava nodded slowly. Thanks. After the rush cleared, Adrian joined James in the kitchen, helping break down the prep station. The new shelving that had arrived 2 days earlier made organization faster. The dish sink, still backed up from the earlier wave, was being tackled by Deshawn, who'd volunteered to stay late his 3rd day on the job. How's he doing? Adrian asked. James wiped a lid before answering. Listens. Doesn't cut corners.
Doesn't complain.
Sounds like he's staying. James nodded once, then added. He could use steel-toe shoes. Keeps bumping his foot on the lower rack. I'll get a stipend in his next check. No one should be nursing bruises just for showing up. By closing time, the cafe was cleaner than it had been in weeks. Not spotless years of wear don't vanish in 7 days, but sharper. More intentional. The kind of clean that showed someone cared again. Adrian sat at one of the corner booths, sipping warm tea, while Kendra finished the closing checklist with Lila. You're not bad at this, Kendra said as she slid into the booth across from him. Which part? Staying. He set the cup down. I spent years thinking if the numbers looked right, the business was fine. Then I walked into this place and saw someone pay for a child's lunch with her own money while her manager watched from the back room. Kendra leaned back. I remember. I don't forget things like that. She didn't smile, but her tone softened. We've still got a ways to go. But people are starting to breathe again. That's the goal. She hesitated, then asked, what about the rest of your shops? 1 location at a time. I've already replaced 2 other managers. Not just because they were bad at their jobs, because they treated people like they were disposable. You're really not playing games with this.
No.
I'm done outsourcing accountability. She looked toward the counter, where Ava and Deshawn were finishing their log sheets. They'll stay if they believe it matters. They will. As the last light in the kitchen flicked off, James appeared in the doorway, wiping his hands on a fresh towel. Everything's wrapped. We good to go? Yeah, Adrian said. We're good. They all stepped out into the night together.
No speeches.
No forced goodbyes. Just quiet footsteps under streetlights and the creak of the cafe door locking behind them. At his car, Adrian paused and looked back. The windows were dark now, but he could still picture the inside, the coffee machine clean, the prep line stocked, the staff not sprinting to keep up with collapse. He wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. But for the first time in a long time, he wasn't just running a business. He was building one worth staying in.